some different leaves that I found from outside. And I'm just going to try to use these as inspiration as I'm kind of coloring and making my own impressions of leaves. They don't have to be exactly the same. They don't have to be the same shape, same colors. I'm just kind of using them as inspiration. So I'm finding like that green is really matching that inside green, and then I'm gonna grab a couple colors to make that more burgundy. Okay, a couple of those, and I might even just start out by sort of tracing the shape, the rough shape of this leaf. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to apply this green everywhere. This is using the side of my pastel, and I want to make sure all those little white tooth bits are covered up. It's called the tooth of the paper. Anytime there's those little bumps. I'm going to go into another layer. I'm not trying to wipe this away. Instead, I'm just sort of pushing the pigment into the paper. Now, the edges of this leaf don't matter because we're going to cut it out. We just know the rough shape. So that's sort of my underneath layer. I might do a little bit of this scumbling technique. Scumbling is when you just take the edge of the pastel and you're sort of doing small little scuffy circles. Hi, little bug. Bye-bye. Okay. This is just going to build up an extra layer of that pastel. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to kind of continue this scumbling technique. I think I'm going to leave some gaps because I want that green peeking out. But if I just went in and added this over top, that would look great too. So just scumbling this in. I'm going to go in with this sort of brownish color, add in some low lights and dimensions. Just play around with it. So that scumbling technique is really building up the layers. If we only use the blending technique, we're going to push off a lot of that pigment, right? I'll show you right here. If I just push that away, you actually start to lose a lot of the pigment. So instead, I'm building up the layers and I just keep adding pigment right on top. I used the wrong color, that's okay, because we want that one in there too. So you can see I'm starting to sort of form this leaf. I'm going to just keep adding this color, scumbling in my color, building it up, not covering it up totally because we want those peaks of green showing through. Now I'm going to tap off my paper. Okay, again, we're not looking to make this identical by any means. We're just playing around with sort of the colors that we notice in that leaf and getting some of the concepts of it in there. Okay, now maybe I'll go back in with my green and do more of a drawing into it type of action to clean up some of those lines or maybe define a few others. You'll notice this is actually, I'm blending in a different way than with my finger. So I'm using the pastel to actually blend into some of the other areas. So you're sort of pushing the pigment around with this technique. Okay, so I would say I'm pretty happy with that leaf. Once it's cut out, it's going to look really cleaned up and a lot more similar. So let's do one more. So I might take this leaf, but maybe I'm gonna go in a different shape. So rather than copying this shape exactly, I could do another leaf that's sort of similar. Maybe I'll focus on this area here. Okay, I'm just gonna do like a very, very simple leaf shape. It does not need to be complex. I'm still seeing this green in there. Obviously some yellows as well. Might get a lighter yellow. And in the veins of the leaf, I'm actually seeing sort of a brownish maroon again. So I'm going to kind of play around with these colors. Like I said, I'm kind of focusing on this part of the leaf here, just picking up on the color schemes of it, not actually trying to duplicate this leaf exactly. So I'm going to go in with my first layer, really push that pigment into the paper. Maybe even go in with some yellows at this time and push that into the paper, building up a nice base. Then I'm going to go in with my scumbling action and just start putting in some of that dimension. And I'm going to just kind of play back and forth between these colors before I add in the detail of the veins. If any spots get too yellow, just scumble back over them with your green, or add in a little bit of another color, right? A little bit, I'm just gonna scumble a little bit of this darker color in here. And if that gets too dark, I'm just gonna blend it in, but you can see I'm not wiping away. That is one technique, but for this one, I'm really sort of blending it and pushing it into the paper. And then just keep that scumbling up. How many times can I say scumbling in this video? Okay, and again, I've got my rough shape there. This leaf I've invented. This one I'm not taking from anything, so I could use the same colors, or I could go in with a new color. I'm gonna add in a little bit of a stem. I'm gonna use this very edge and just kind of roughly scuff in that vein. Okay. Doesn't matter if it goes up here because we're gonna be cutting this leaf out. It's sometimes easier to cut the leaf out first before you add in the detail, but I really wanted to show you this. Okay. And always nice to go in and add in some other colors and textures. Doesn't have to be everywhere, it could just be certain places. And don't be afraid to give your leaf some kind of darker, gross spots because that's what happens to leaves, right? So you can actually make them more realistic by making them a little bit less perfect. All right, so I think I'm happy with those two leaves. I'm going to cut them out really quickly. Cut out portion is where they really turn into leaves. There we go. Two very different, really nice leaves. Okay, so here's a simple way to get some other shapes. I think we can all make shapes, simple leaves like this, but sometimes we want to make more complex shapes, and it's a bit trickier. So we just simply take a printout of some leaf outlines, and can't see that very well, but we can either use the window technique or just look through and basically trace that leaf shape however we can onto the paper. Just rough because leaves come in all different shapes and sizes. And then I'm going to take this piece of paper and flip it over. I can lightly see the leaf outline there, but it doesn't really matter. I'm then just going to go in, figure out what colors I'd like to use for this one. So it's going to be more of an orange, a bright orange leaf, because I just love the way they look. And I'm going to cover up that entire section of leaf. Going in with my first layer, just like I did before. Getting that first layer of pigment down as my base layer and covering up as much of the tooth of the paper as I can. With a dark brown or even a black. I don't know where the edge of my leaf is. That's okay. We're just creating a really beautiful blend of colors. That's going to work for any leaf shape at all. I'm going to go in with my, say it with me now, scumbling technique to build up some layers. And once I'm happy with sort of that base look for my leaf, then I'm just going to quickly cut it out. Before I add my detail, okay? So flip it back over to cut it out. Ba-doom, beautiful. Now that I have my leaf and the coloring's all nicely in there, I might come in with some more detail. Keep that sort of vein of the stem going up. And just draw into it with any sort of detail that you think the leaf needs. And simple way of getting a leaf. If you need to blend it more, do it. If you need to add more detail, this is where you get to be really creative. Okay, so simple way of creating some of those shapes that are a bit more complex. But freehanding is also completely fine too.